Hi everyone, I wanted to give you a video on weighted voting, which is also in our textbook, chapter 11, section 4, apportionment. And this is important to me because, again, this is a process that's used in a lot of our votes, including the presidential election, because not every vote is counted equally. There are actually several methods. Or methods or types of voting, I should say, that include apportionment. And apportionment means that some votes count more than others. Okay. Again, this happens in our electoral college and is also very common in board, aka the group of individuals who run an organization or company, votes, board votes. This can happen when, say, your CEO has more voting power than, say, your COO or CFO, or president has more than vice president, etc. Okay. There are other times, like in class, maybe when I have you guys vote, and my vote will count, maybe twice as much as anybody else's vote. Now, other people's votes still count, okay? But when another person's vote counts more, or when another individual's vote counts more than others, that's called apportionment or weighted voting, okay? It's also called weighted, as in it has more weight than another vote, okay? The winning candidate of a weighted vote must match or pass a quota. Quota, a quota. This is some number, minimum number that's needed to pass a vote. Now, we know that for like the majority method, we have 50% plus, and that actually is going to help us set some borderlines for the quota in a weighted vote. Okay. Now, this does need to be a predetermined number that must be at least half of the sum rounded up. Again, the same sort of rules that we saw with the majority candidate winner, up to the total sum of all the votes. Okay. So we see the notation for this look like square brackets, the quota number, okay, and then the largest weight vote, the next largest weight vote, the next largest weight vote, all the way down to the smallest weighted vote. Okay, a whole list like this where we see our quota number first. Now I'm going to rewrite this with some variables. I'm going to say our quota number goes first. And again, there's some rules on that. And we have our largest weight, our next largest weight, our next largest weight, all the way down, however far we need to go till our smallest weight. I'm going to go Z. Okay. Now, there doesn't need to be 26 of the votes. There just happen to be some letters in the alphabet. We're going to pretend that Q win up front for the quota. Okay. Now, again, this quota must be bigger than everybody added up, and then divided in half. But you'll notice that it has to be strictly greater, not just greater or equal, strictly bigger, aka that 50% plus, okay? And can be smaller or equal to A plus B plus C, just everybody added up. Now that's because if it's equal to that, it will take everybody voting the same way to win the vote, okay? If it were any higher than that, there's no way anybody would ever win, okay? Because you would need more voters than you have possibilities, okay? Let's look at an example here. A board at a company has a president whose vote is worth 8, a vice president worth 6, and 4 CEs, that's like your CEO, CFO, COO sort of individuals, with weights worth 4 each, and 6 at-large members who have votes worth 1. Okay. We're wondering here what our minimum the quorum or quota could be. Okay. I should have mentioned that quota and quorum, same thing. Quota and quorum. Okay. Minimum quorum. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put that right up here. Or quorum, or quorum. There we go. Just so we know both. Both are the same thing. Okay. So we're wondering what the minimum can be. So what I'm going to do first is I'm actually going to use my notation, and I'm going to say the quorum, we don't know yet. I'm going to put a question mark. We don't know what our quorum needs to be yet, but we have one vote that's worth 8. The next one is worth 6. Then we have 4 that are worth 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 that are worth 4, and 6 that are worth 1 each. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 individuals that all have worth 1. So this is one heck of a vote, right? We got to see what the minimum number we need is. Now, what I know from my previous notation is that the minimum number or quota has to be bigger than all of these add up and divided by 2. Okay, now, so it has to be bigger than that. I'm going to see whatever that is, and I'm going to up it. Make sure we check. So I need to know what 8 plus 6 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 1 6 times is. I did a little cheat there just to write a little bit simpler. Okay. And again, I'm going to add all these up and I'm going to divide by 2. So let me go ahead. Let's just make sure I'm doing this carefully. Let's pull out my calculator. Let's see what we're looking at. So we have 8 plus 6 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 1 6 times, right? And we get 36 divided by 2. All right. Now again, I can hit equals and I take 36 divided by 2 and we get 18. Now here's the problem. 18 is not enough. Remember, it must be upped. We have to go up on that. So it turns out that the minimum quorum or quota is 19 votes. 19 votes. Now you can see that different people weigh different amounts here. So it turns out that we could go ahead. We could do, say, the vote could be, let's see, the vote could be the vice president. All 4 of these CEs. 4 times 4 is 16, plus 6 more is already 22. And there we go. We could have all the CEs and the vice president, and the vote would pass. That means the president and all the other at-large members would not be needed. Okay. As again, the president has a little bit more, because if we had just the president and the vice president, and then 1 CE and 1 at-large member, that's all they would need. The president, the vice president, 1 at-large member. Let me go ahead and underline this. The president, the vice president, 1 CE, and 1 at-large member. And there we go. We can see that we hit the 19 we need for quorum. Okay. So that's how you would find a minimum. Now, I want to just point out, I actually already know the maximum the quorum could be as well. The maximum the quorum could be is 36, because that's everybody added together. That means it would take everybody voting together to get a winner. Okay. Now, when you're talking about boards and things like that, you're not necessarily talking about voting specific people to specific jobs. You might be voting on company policy, or whether or not to make a business deal, or whether or not to offer a certain package to individuals who are joining the company, or whether or not to merge companies, right? Lots of different things are part of votes when it comes to boards of a company. Okay. Here is a nonprofit board. And this nonprofit board, as we can see, has quite a few members. We have a member with, wait, 4, 4, 4, 3, 3, 2, 2, 2 weighted votes. So that board has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 members. There are 8 voting members on this board. Let me just write that down. 8 voters here. Okay. And in fact, that's the first question. How many people vote? There are 8 voters. Okay. What is the fewest voters needed to pass a vote. Now, the passing the vote here we can see is 16. What is the fewest we need to meet 16? Okay, when we look for the fewest we need, we're going to start with our biggest values first. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start with 4 plus 4 is 8, plus another 4 is 12. Okay, so we're up to 12 with these three. Now I need to get to 16. And so I'm going to add another 3 to make, oh no, that only makes 15. Okay, that means I need either another 3 or a 2. Either another 3 or a 2. Either way, we'll get it. I'm going to go ahead and add the next 3. 15 plus 3 more is 18. Boom! We finally got there. Now, that means that we need all the 4s and both the 3s. So we need 5 votes, 5 voters to vote for this to pass. Must have a minimum of 5 votes to pass. Technically, to pass the quorum, right? Or to pass the resolution or to pass the motion. Okay. Now, does it need to be unanimous? Does it need to be unanimous? I don't know if you remember unanimous. Unanimous means everybody. Unanimous means all of them. And we can see from the previous question that we could do it with the 4s and the 3s alone. The 3 2s that are still left, those 3 individuals are not needed to pass the vote. So nope, doesn't need to be unanimous. It does not need to be unanimous. In fact, I could add them all up and find out if the quorum was 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 3 plus 3 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. I got all my voters there. If the quorum was 24, if the quorum was 24 votes, then it would need to be unanimous. Okay. Fact, if a weighted vote can pass with just a single member, if a single person's vote is enough to pass a quorum, that member is called a dictator. That member is called a dictator because they can do a vote all by themselves, means they don't need anybody else to pass any motions. That person is considered a dictator in voter math. Okay, now that means that the person's vote has to weigh an awful lot, and everybody else's vote has to actually weigh very little, because you still need a quorum to be more than half of all the weights. Okay, so let's see if we can write a weighted scenario that has a dictator. We need to make sure we have a valid quorum. Okay. Now, I'm actually going to start really simply here. So I know that when I do this, I need a quorum and at least 2 voters, one to be the dictator and one not to be the dictator, right? Okay, if it's just a single person, it's not called a vote anymore. Okay, so I need a quorum and I need at least 2. I need at least 2 voters, an A and a B. I think I can do this with just 2. I do know that my quorum must be bigger than A plus B divided by 2. I know that. And it must be less than or equal to A plus B, right? But I also know that A alone has to be bigger than my quorum. Okay, now you don't need to write all this notation right here, but it might be helpful. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set my quorum after I set my A. I'm going to make my A really big. Okay, I'm going to say my A is worth 20. Say my A is worth 20. Okay, and I'm going to set my B pretty small. We can set it at 1 or 2. I'm actually going to set it at 1. Okay, which means that I need my quorum to be bigger than 20 plus 1 divided by 2. Which is, I need my quorum to be bigger than 20 plus 1 is 21 divided by 2 is 10.5. So I could have my quorum be 11. And I think I could even have my quorum be 11 or 12. I'm actually going to go all the way up to 12. And why would I go all the way up to 12? Aha! Because my 20 weighted voter is bigger than the 12. Okay. And my 20 weighted voter is bigger than the 12. So they are a dictator. They are a dictator. I could even do a couple more ones in that list on the vote, and I would still have a dictator. I'd still have a dictator. Okay. I hope that this helps everybody and you got a couple of ideas ready to go on this. Again, we can use a lot of our math notations to figure out a minimum and maximum quorums, and we can use it to check and see if we have a dictator in any of these situations. If you have more questions, be sure to come by office hours or check with the tutor. Otherwise, I'll see you in class. Have a great day.